Hello friends, welcome to the next session under AI lecture series. Today we'll talk about natural language processing, right? So natural language is a language using which we human beings communicate with each other, right? So communication, what we carry out is through speech and text. If you're talking about the text, in fact, we are surrounded by text. We see text every day, everywhere. In fact, signs, menus, emails, SMS, web pages, almost everywhere we see text. And what about speech? We speak to each other more than we write. It is easier to learn to speak than to write. So voice and text are how we communicate with each other. And this is what I'm doing right now. I'm speaking to you using voice and I'm teaching you all using the presentation, which is nothing but a text, right? So here what we are doing is we are trying to see how we can make machines communicate in a natural language. Because whenever we want to communicate with the machine, what we do, we use a language what machine understands, the programming language, what machines understand and carry out the instructions given. But we want machines to understand the natural language, what is used by human beings for the communication. So let us look at a new domain under AI, that is natural language processing, and in short, we'll be calling it as NLP. Fine. Now, so it's a branch of AI aimed to make machines read, understand, and derive meaning from human languages. Right. Now, giving computers the ability to understand text and spoken words in much the same way human beings can. It helps machines process and understand the human languages so that they can automatically perform machine translation, summarization, document classification, spelling check, etc. So in short, natural languages refers to the way humans communicate with each other. It combines computational linguistics and rule-based modeling of human language with statistical machine learning and deep learning models in case of NLP, right? If you want machines to learn. These techniques enable computers to process human language in the form of text or voice data and to understand its full meaning, complete with the speaker or writer's intent and sentiment. We talk about opinion and sentiment mining also. Fine. Now, what are the components of NLP? Right? We'll be talking in this lecture, we'll be talking about the components and the pre-processing tasks involved with natural language processing. So the first component what we are talking about is morphology. So morphology is concerned with the interplay between words and the relationship with other words. We can say it is a study of construction of words from primitive meaningful units. In linguistics, morphology is the study of the internal structure and functions of the words and how the words are formed from smaller meaningful units called morphemes. Right? Next, what we have is syntax. Now, we all are from computer science background, so we know what is a syntax. Whenever we are writing a program, we do follow a syntax, right? So syntax defines how words and sentences are put together. It refers to arranging words to make a sentence. It also involves determining the structural role of words in the sentence and in the phrases. Next, what we have semantics. It is a study of the meaning of the words and the group of words. The entire purpose of a natural language is to facilitate exchange of ideas among people about the world in which they live. These ideas converge to form the meaning of an utterance or a text in the form of series of sentences. The meaning of a text is called its semantics. A fully adequate natural language semantics would require a complete theory of how people think and communicate ideas. Next, what we have is pragmatics. Now, pragmatics is used to explain the content of a spoken expressions. A pragmatic analysis deals with the context of a sentence. Example can be like, do you know what's the time? Do you know what time is it? One context, this might be literally asking that time. Another might be a mother shouting at son to wake him up. And definitely she's not asking time there, right? Because what we say, what do you know what time it is? If the answer from the by the son to mom is it's 11:30, the dialogue from the other side would be मैंने क्या पूछा और तू क्या बता रहा है, right? Because mom is shouting at him, see what the time and still you are sleeping. But the interpretation is what he's saying mom the time. That is why knowing the context is really very important. Here the sentence is ambiguous as lot of context deals with the emotions. They can be wrongly interpreted and so it is difficult for a machine to crack the emotions. So lots of research work is going on this emotional mining also. Next, what you have is discourse, right? So discourse integration depends upon the sentences that precedes it and also invokes the meaning of the sentence that follows it. For example, the word that in the sentence we wanted that depends upon the prior discourse context, right? So it deals with how the immediately preceding sentence can affect the interpretation of the next sentence. The last component, what we have is the world knowledge. It includes the general knowledge about the world, right? A common knowledge, what is required. Next, whenever you're carrying out any natural language processing, before carrying out a processing, you need to carry out some pre-processing task on the language, right? So some of them I have listed here, that is tokenization. As the name suggests, you break down the text into smaller semantic units or single clauses. Then we have bag of words, can represent a sentence as a bag of words vector. That means you just put all the unique words into a bag, fine, along with their frequencies, how many times that word has appeared. Next, what we have is part of speech tagging, marking of words as nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, etc. So this helps in better understanding of the sentence. Stemming and lemmatization is nothing but standardizing words by reducing them to their root forms. It is normalization of the text. Then last pre-processing task, what we'll be talking about is stop word removal. So filtering out common words that add little or no unique information. For example, prepositions and articles like at, to, a, and, the, etc. Fine. So let us look at them one by one. So let us start with tokenization. So tokens are the building blocks of natural language. Processing the raw text happens at this level. It's a way of separating a piece of text into smaller units called tokens. So your tokens can be either words, characters, or subwords. Tokenization is the task of cutting a text into pieces called tokens and at the same time removing certain characters such as punctuations. The most common way of forming tokens is based on space. Like we say, space is a delimiter. Tokens are used to prepare a vocabulary, and vocabulary refers to the set of unique tokens in the corpus. Now, there are three types of tokenization. You have word tokenization. So what it does, it splits a piece of text into individual words based on a certain delimiter. Now, suppose if you take an example, I love India. So here, what you're using, the delimiter is a space. So space I is one token, space, then love is another token, and India is a third token, right? So all the words which are separated by the space are considered as one token. So assuming space as a delimiter, the tokenization of the sentence results in the three tokens. Similarly, you have character tokenization. So what it does is splits the piece of text into set of characters. Example, if you have Shivaji, so it will be converted into 7 tokens. Like each character is a unique token. Fine. Then again, you have subword tokenization, that is n-gram characters. So it splits the piece of text into subwords. A simple example, greatest can be segmented as great and EST, right? These are 2 tokens. Right? Now, what are the limitations? Now, blank spaces alone are not sufficient to perform proper tokenization. Splitting on blank spaces may break up what should be considered as one token, as in the case of certain names like New Delhi or West Bengal. Now, we cannot have New Delhi as 2 tokens. If you take space delimiter, this becomes 2 tokens, right? But then it will lose the meaning. We want New Delhi as a single token. Similarly, West Bengal. is a single token, but if you use space as delimiter, then it will be having two tokens, that is West and Bengal. Right? So it has this limitation. Now tokenization can remove punctuations. In the case of periods that follow abbreviations like example, when you write doctor and you write dot here, the period followed that abbreviation should be considered as part of the same token and should not be removed, right? Tokenization process can be particularly problematic when dealing with the biomedical text domains, which contains lots of hyphens, parentheses, and other punctuation marks. Right? So next, what we have is bag of words, right? A bag of words is a representation of text that describes the occurrence of words within a document. It's a commonly used model that allows to count all words in a piece of text, right? Given a text, you count all the words occurring in it. Basically, it creates an occurrence matrix for the sentence. You can just see this is an occurrence matrix for the sentence or document, and keeps track of word counts and disregards the grammatical details and the word order. Just keep the count of words, right? It is called a bag of words because any information about the order or structure of the words in the document is discarded. The model is only concerned with whether known words occur in the document, not where in the document, right? It is not worried about the context and the position of the words, right? These word frequencies or occurrences are used as features for training a classifier. Maybe when you want to classify a document, right? It is related to what, whether it is related to sales, purchase, production, right? Now here I have taken a simple example to show you all how bag of words work. This is a vector, right? So here I have two sentences. I love programming. Python is my favorite programming language. Let us say this is a text, what I want to create bag of words. So what it will do is, right, it will create a matrix. You can see this is a matrix, right? For the sentence or document. Now my document has only two sentences. So this is the matrix what is created. Now what it does, it keeps the track of word counts. So now I love programming. So what is what I love programming? And then Python is my favorite language. Now programming is common, so it is not repeated here. Fine. Now you start counting. I is appearing only once. So write 1 here. Love is appearing in S is once. So it is 1 here. Programming is 1 here. Now Python does not appear in the sentence S1, so it is 0. Is also 0. My is also 0. Favorite is 0, and language is also 0. Fine. Similarly, if you look at S2, I does not appear in the sentence S2, so it is 0. Fine. Love does not appear in the sentence S2, so again it is 0. Programming appears once, so here the count is put as 1. Fine. Python appears once, is 1. My is appearing for 1 time. Favorite is 1 time, and language is also 1 time. Now, if you can just look at it, if a new sentence contains new words, then vocabulary size will increase, and thereby the length of the vectors also. If you add one more sentence, again the size will increase, right? And additionally, you can just see the vectors would contain all zeros and ones, right? This is a drawback, right? So all vectors would contain many zeros and thereby resulting in a sparse matrix. You can see this is all sparse matrix, right? Now, all words have the same importance. No semantic information is preserved. Like no importance is given to any word. All are treated at the same level. No information on the grammar of the sentence nor on the ordering of the words in the text is retained. That is absence of semantic meaning and context. Now stop words like the or a add noise to the analysis, and some words are not weighted accordingly. Like suppose if you have Newton is a scientist. Now Newton weights less than the word is. Why? Because it is all treated at the same level. Newton is occurring once, is occurring once, scientist is occurring once, right? So they are treated as the same level. Right? Now let us say a machine is trying to understand the meaning of the sentence, today is a beautiful day. Now what, as a human beings, what will focus on? We'll say the sentence talks about today. It talks about today is a beautiful day and the mood is happy and positive, right? Beauty is clearly the adjective word used here. From bag of word approach, all the words are broken into count and the frequency with no preference to a word in the particular. So all words have the same frequency. Today is having frequency 1, is also having 1, is also having 1, beautiful is also 1, and day is also 1. And obviously there is no emphasis on beauty or positive mood by the machine if machine is reading it using bag of words, right? But it is really that A tells us more about context of a sentence compared to beauty? No. That is why bag of word needs to be upgraded. Fine. So you upgrade it to what? You upgrade it to term frequency. That is term inverse document frequency. Right? In short, we'll be calling as TF IDF. It's a statistical measure that evaluates how relevant a word is to a document in a collection of documents. Right? In case of bag of words, it was not based on the relevancy. It was just based on the frequency of words. Right? This is done by multiplying two matrices: how many times a word appears in a document and the inverse document frequency of the words across a set of documents. It works by increasing proportionally to the number of times a word appears in a document, but is offset by the number of documents that contains the word. So words that are common in every document, such as this, what, and if, rank low, even though they may appear many times, since they don't mean much to that document in particular. Some semantic information is preserved as uncommon words are given more importance than common words, which was not the case in case of bag of words. Right? Now, a simple example, if you look, it's looking good. Here good will have importance, right? It's looking bad. Here everything is same except the instead of good we are using bad, which completely changes the meaning of the sentence. So this is what TF-IDF model does. It gives importance to uncommon words in the sentence. It evaluates the words used in a sentence and measures its usage compared to words used in the entire document. In other words, it's a score to highlight each word's relevance in the entire document. And it is calculated as IDF is nothing but log of number of documents divided by number of documents containing the word. Right? And term frequency is what? Number of repetitions of the words in a document divided by number of words in a document. So TF answers questions like how many times is good, that word good used in the entire document, and IDF answers questions like how important is the word good in the entire list of documents. Is it common theme in all the documents, right? So using TF and IDF, machine makes sense of important words in a document and important words throughout all the documents. Right? Next component, what we have, the next pre-processing thing is part of speech tagging. It's one of the important thing which helps in knowing the context of the sentence, right? So in short, we'll be calling it as POS tagging. So POS tagging is the process of marking up a word in a corpus to a corresponding part of a speech tag based on its context and definition. This task is not straightforward as a particular word may have a different part of speech based on the context in which the word is used. Example like in the sentence, give me your answer. Answer is a noun, but in the sentence, answer the question, here answer is a verb. To understand the meaning of any sentence or to extract relationship and build a knowledge graph, post tagging is very important step. So here is just an example to make the concept a bit clear. Suppose you are given a sentence, everyone back to work. We say everyone back to work. Fine. Now, if you want to do a post tagging to this, right, part of speech tagging. Now, so what is everyone in this sentence? Everyone in this sentence is pronoun. Back is adverb here. To is preposition and work is verb. Like you're doing something, so it is verb. So you should have thorough knowledge of English grammar, right? For post tagging, right? Now, for post tagging, if I give the input as everyone back to work, the output will be what? It will have each sentence with its part of speech, right? So everyone, so these are the abbreviations what are used. Instead of writing whole pronoun or whole adverb, they write it in short, like verb is written as VB. So lookout will be very easy and readable. Fine. So if this is the input after POS, this is the part of speech tagging, you will get this. Fine. Now, these lists are already available in the languages what you'll be using for your natural language processing tasks like Python, R, and all. Now, there are different types of post tagging techniques, your lexical based methods, which assigns the post tag the most frequently occurring with the word in the training corpus. Rule based methods assigns post tags based on the rules. For example, if we have a rule that says words ending with ed or ing must be assigned to a verb. Now, rule-based techniques can be used along with lexical-based approaches to allow pure tagging of words that are not present in the training corpus but are there in the testing data, right? Probabilistic methods, this method assigns the post tags based on the probability of a particular tag sequence occurring. Conditional random fields and hidden Markov models are probabilistic approaches to assign a post tags. We'll not go into the detail, but you should just know, okay, these are the types of techniques. Mostly rule-based methods are used. Next, even you can have deep learning methods. So recurrent neural networks can also be used for post tagging. You can use recurrent neural networks. Next, what we have is stemming. So stemming is a method of normalization of words, right? It's a method of normalization of words. It's a technique in which a set of words in a sentence are converted into a sequence to shorten its lookup. In this method, the words having the same meaning but have some variations or inflections according to the context or sentence are normalized. In other words, there is one root word, but there are many variations of the same root words. For example, the root word is eat and its variations are eats, eating, eaten, and so on. A simple example, if you take, he was riding, right? And again, we have a sentence, he was taking the ride. Here, both the sentences meaning is same. That is riding activity in the past. A human can easily understand that both meanings are the same, but for machines, both sentences are different. Thus, it becomes hard to convert it into the same data, into the same raw data. In case we do not provide the same data set, then machines fails to predict. So it is necessary to differentiate the meaning of each word to prepare the data set for machine learning. And here stemming is used to categorize the same type of data by getting its root word. Now, it refers to the process of slicing the end or beginning of the word with the intention of removing affixes. Now, affixes are attached at the beginning of the word. They are called as prefixes. Example, bio in case of biology. And the ones attached at the end of the word are called suffixes, that is full in case of wonderful, right? So it may be like you're removing part of some part of a character of a word to get it to its root form, and removing the part maybe from the beginning or maybe from the at the end. Fine. Now, what are the advantages and limitations? Shortening the vocabulary space, thus drastically improving the size of the index or feature space. So it increases, makes it more faster. Stemming is used in information retrieval systems like search engines. In case of search engines, even when we are searching for something, right? Like if you are searching for, let us say, computing or computing devices or computer, it will give you the results related to that particular statement, the words, right? It gets it to the root form and search all the queries related to that particular word. Now, not all the words can be stemmed to the right root word. So it is not necessary what is the right root word. We'll see in case of lemmatization, the difference here. It can't relate words which have different forms based on the grammatical constructs like is, am, be, all represent the same root. But stemming can't prove them to the common form. The word better should be resolved to good, but stemmers would fail to do that. Fine. Now, so next, because of the problems with stemming, we go for what do we call it as lemmatization. Fine. Lemmatization technique is like stemming. The output after lemmatization is called lemma, which is a root word rather than the root stem. In case of stemming, we had root stem. Here we have root word, right? The process of finding the lemma of a word depending on its meaning and context. In case of stemming, we don't bother about the context and the meaning, but in case of lemmatization, it is based on the meaning and the context. Objective is to reduce a word to its base form and grouping together different forms of the same word. Simple example, verbs in the past tense are changed into present. Example, went is changed to go, and synonyms are unified. The best is changed to good. Hence, standardizing words with similar meaning to their root. In short, we can say lemmatization resolves words to the dictionary form known as lemma, for which it requires detailed dictionaries in which the algorithm can look into and link words to their corresponding lemmas, right? So they have the root word dictionaries, right? Example, you can see here the word running, runs, and ran are all forms of the word run. So run is the lemma for the all the previous words. Now, a simple example just to show you all lemmatization and stemming. In lemmatization, caring is converted into root term as care. The same thing in case of stemming, caring is converted to car. So why? Because it is not bothered about its meaning and the context. But in case of lemmatization, it gives a proper root word that is care depending on its meaning and the context. So lemmatization also takes into consideration the context of the word in order to solve other problems like disambiguation, which means it can discriminate between identical words that have different meanings depending on the specific context. Right? In case of Hindi, when you say, कल आप कहाँ थे, right? कल आप कहाँ थे, कल आप मेरे घर आना. So कल is used for past tense as well as future tense. Fine. By providing a part or speech parameter to a word, whether it is a noun, a verb, and so on, it is possible to define a role for that word in a sentence and remove the disambiguation. Fine. Now, let us have some small comparison of stemming and lemmatization. So both are text normalization techniques for NLP. Stemming is faster as it cuts words without knowing the context, while lemmatization is slower as it knows the context of the words before processing. Stemming just removes or stems the last few characters of a word or the first few characters of a word, often leading to incorrect meaning and spelling. Lemmatization considers the context and converts the word to its meaningful base form, which is called lemma. Sometimes the same word can have multiple different lemmas. Lemmatization is a much more resource-intensive task than performing a stemming process, right? It requires more knowledge about the language structure than a stemming approach. It demands more computational power than setting up or adapting a stemming algorithm. Though stemming is faster, lemmatization gives good results. The last pre-processing task what we have is stop words. So stop words are words which do not contain important significance to corresponding text. It includes common language articles, pronouns, and prepositions such as and, the, to, or etc. in English. In this process, some very common words that appear to provide little or no value to the NLP objectives are filtered and excluded from the text to be processed. Hence, removing widespread and frequent terms that are not informative about the corresponding text. Stop words can be safely ignored by carrying out a lookup in a predefined list of keywords. freeing up database space and improving the processing time, right? Now, there is no universal list of stop words. These can be pre-selected or built from scratch. One can begin by adopting predefined stop words and add words to the list later on. We can decide like what should be our stop words. Sometimes stop words removal can wipe out relevant information and modify the context in a given sentence. A simple example, if you talk about, if you are performing a sentiment analysis, we might not get proper output if we remove stop word like not. Under some conditions, we need to select a minimal stop word list and add additional terms depending on our own specific objectives. Now, many languages like what we use for programming have their own set of stop words, or you can create your own. Fine. Now, what are the advantages of NLP? It helps computers to communicate or machines to communicate with humans in their languages. It is very time efficient. Most of the companies use NLP to improve the efficiency of documentation process, accuracy of documentation, and identifying the information from the large databases. See, human beings really get bored of working with the text and the documentation. So if NLP does well, it will be a great boom for the human industry, in fact. Users can ask questions about any subject and get a direct response within seconds. This is what we are doing. Even Google search is part of natural language processing. When we're asking the queries, we're asking in our own language. It tries to interpret that query and give us the results within seconds. Now, the accuracy of the answers increases with the amount of relevant information provided in the question. How we frame our question decides what type of answers we'll be getting. It allows to perform more language-based data as compared to a human being. Why? Because human beings get fatigue. So machines can work without fatigue and in unbiased and consistent way. Of course, there are some disadvantages also related to NLP. May not show the context, right? It may be unpredictable. It's unable to adapt to the new domain and it has a limited function built for a single and specific task only. It changes, the language changes from domain to domain. So once you train it for one domain, it needs to be trained for all the different domains because the same context, the meaning of the word sentences changes. So complex query language, the system may not be able to provide the correct answer. It is the question that is poorly worded or ambiguous. Right? Doesn't have a user interface which lacks features that allow users to further interact with the system. Because it has a fixed database, it will search in it and accordingly the answer is, the results are given. I hope a simple introduction to natural language processing is clear. We just spoke about the components and we talk about the pre-processing task, what needs to be carried out before you start processing the text of the, which is in the form of natural language, which is a part of unstructured data. And what we're doing is we're trying to process a unstructured data by trying to convert it or get it into some form of structure. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe.